Welcome to my channel Alane Signal. The laughter started quietly, just a few snickers echoing across the metallic lecture hall, but it didn't take long for it to spread. By the time Aria Vance reached her seat, the entire room was buzzing with amusement. She pretended not to hear them. The Galactic Academy of Advanced Command was the most prestigious institution in the Orion Arm, a place where the best minds from 1,000 worlds came to train. Its students wore sleek, adaptive uniforms woven with nanofiber, clothing that could regulate temperature, monitor vitals, and even harden into protective armor. And then there was Aria. Her jacket stood out like a relic from a forgotten age. Faded blue, frayed at the cuffs, patched in multiple places. It bore the marks of time, of wear, of survival. It looked like something dragged out of a museum, or worse, a junkyard. "Is that fabric?" someone whispered loudly behind her. "Primitive," another voice added. "Didn't even know they still made those." Aria kept her eyes forward. She had heard it all before. Earth-born students were rare in the academy. Not because humans lacked intelligence, but because Earth itself had become something of a legend. A myth. A cautionary tale. A dead world. Or so they believed. The instructor hadn't arrived yet. Students lounged in their seats, whispering, laughing, glancing at Aria as if she were part of the curriculum, an exhibit in cultural obsolescence. One student leaned across the aisle toward her. He had luminous silver skin and eyes that shimmered like liquid mercury. "Hey," he said, barely containing his grin. "Did your planet not invent anything better? Or is that jacket sentimental?" Aria turned her head slowly. Her expression was calm, almost too calm. "It works," she said simply. That only made them laugh harder. "Works," the silver-skinned student repeated. "For what?" "Attracting dust." More laughter. Aria faced forward again. She wasn't here to impress them. She was here to graduate. A sudden hush swept through the room as the doors slid open. Instructor Halden entered. He was a tall figure, his posture rigid, his uniform immaculate. His face bore the subtle augmentations of someone who had seen decades, perhaps centuries, of service. His reputation preceded him. Strict, unforgiving, brilliant. The laughter died instantly. "Settle," Halden said, his voice low but commanding. The room obeyed. He moved to the front, activating the central holodisplay. A three-dimensional star map flickered into existence, rotating slowly. "Today," he began, "we discuss historical anomalies in pre-expansion conflicts." Specifically, his voice stopped, mid-sentence. The silence that followed was different from before. Not disciplined, not respectful, uneasy. Halden was staring, not at the class, at Aria, more precisely, at her jacket. The room shifted, students exchanging confused glances. Aria felt it too, that weight, that sudden, focused attention. Halden stepped down from the platform. Slowly, each step echoed. He didn't break eye contact. The students leaned forward, curiosity replacing amusement. Halden stopped in front of Aria. "Stand," he said. Aria hesitated for a fraction of a second, then rose. Up close, the wear on her jacket was even more apparent. The fabric was scarred, stitched, reinforced with materials that didn't quite match. It was ugly by Academy standards. But Halden wasn't looking at it like it was ugly. He was looking at it like it was impossible. "Where?" he asked quietly. "Did you get this?" The room went still. Aria met his gaze. "It belonged to my mother." Halden's jaw tightened. "Remove it," he said. A ripple of surprise moved through the class. Aria frowned slightly. "Sir, the jacket," Halden said, more firmly. "Take it off." Something in his tone made it clear, this wasn't a request. Aria slowly slipped the jacket off her shoulders and held it out. Halden didn't take it immediately. Instead, he examined it closely, his eyes tracing every seam, every patch, every mark. Then, with an almost reverent motion, he reached out and took it. The room held its breath. Halden turned the jacket over. And then he saw it. A patch. Small. Faded. Easy to miss. But unmistakable. His hand froze. His voice, when it came, was barely above a whisper. Number. The students leaned forward, confusion deepening. What is it? Someone murmured. Halden didn't answer. He stared at the patch like it might disappear if he blinked. Then he looked up at Aria. Your mother, he said slowly. What was her name? Aria hesitated. Dr. Alara Vance. The reaction was immediate. Halden stepped back as if struck. Several students gasped, not because they recognized the name, but because of his reaction. You're certain? He asked. Aria nodded. Yes. Halden's grip on the jacket tightened. That's not possible, he said. Alara Vance is. He stopped himself. The room waited. A historical figure, he finished. A murmur spread across the class. Wait, what? Who is that? Never heard of her. Aria's brow furrowed. She was a scientist. Halden let out a breath that sounded more like disbelief than relief. She was more than that, he said. He turned back to the class. Class dismissed. The students froze. Now, Halden added. Reluctantly, they began to gather their things, whispering furiously as they left. Eyes lingered on Aria, on the jacket, on the instructor who had just ended a lecture without explanation. Within minutes, the hall was empty. Except for Aria, and Halden. He stood there for a long moment, holding the jacket like it was something fragile. Follow me, he said finally. Aria didn't argue. They moved through the academy's corridors in silence, past towering glass walls and humming systems, until they reached a secured chamber. Halden placed his hand against the scanner. The door slid open. Inside was a room unlike any Aria had seen. Dimly lit, lined with artifacts, not modern ones, but old ones. Ancient technology, relics from early spaceflight, pieces of history preserved behind transparent shields. At the center of the room stood a pedestal. Empty. Halden approached it slowly. This room, he said, is restricted to senior faculty and command-level personnel. Aria looked around. Why bring me here? Halden turned to her, holding up the jacket. Because this, he said, belongs here. Aria's chest tightened. It's just a jacket. No, Halden said. It isn't. He walked to a nearby console and activated it. A hologram flickered to life above the pedestal. A woman appeared, wearing the same jacket, only then it wasn't worn. It wasn't patched. It was new. Her eyes were sharp, determined, alive. Aria's breath caught. That's her, she whispered. Halden nodded. Dr. Alara Vance, he said. Lead scientist of the Horizon Initiative. Aria shook her head slightly. I've never heard of that. Most haven't, Halden said. Because it was classified, buried after the collapse. He looked at the hologram. Centuries ago, before the expansion, Earth faced extinction. Environmental collapse, resource depletion, internal conflict. The planet was dying. Aria listened, heart pounding. The Horizon Initiative was humanity's last gamble. A project to develop a method of faster-than-light travel before it was too late. He gestured to the hologram. Your mother led that project. Aria's mind raced. That's not possible. She never talked about any of this. Halden gave a faint, humorless smile. She wouldn't have been allowed to. He paused. The initiative succeeded. Aria blinked. What? They developed the first viable FTL drive. Primitive by today's standards, but functional. Halden's voice grew quieter. But something went wrong. The hologram shifted, showing distorted images, ships, energy surges, a flash of light. The first test created a rupture. A tear in space-time. It destabilized Earth's orbit. The planet didn't survive. Aria felt like the floor had dropped out from under her. "No," she said softly. "That's not what we were taught." History was rewritten, Halden said. Blame was shifted, details erased. It was easier to call Earth a natural loss than to admit the truth. He looked at the jacket again. "Your mother stayed behind." Aria's throat tightened. "Stayed, to contain the rupture," Halden said. "To prevent it from spreading." Silence filled the room. "She knew it would kill her," he added. Aria's hands trembled. "That's not. She told me she left because she had to travel. That she'd come back." Halden's expression softened. "She probably hoped she would." Aria looked at the hologram again. At the woman wearing the same jacket. The same one she had carried all her life without understanding. "Why is this important?" she asked quietly. Halden stepped closer. "Because the rupture wasn't completely sealed." Aria's eyes snapped to his. "It still exists," he said. "Hidden, suppressed, but growing." A chill ran through her. "And this jacket," Halden continued, "contains embedded tech from the original project. Early stabilizers, unique energy signatures." He met her gaze. "It's a key." Aria swallowed. "A key to what?" Halden didn't hesitate. "To finishing what your mother started." The weight of his words settled over her. "You're saying," "I'm saying," Halden interrupted, "that the Academy didn't accept you by chance." Aria stared at him. "They knew who you were," he said. "Or at least, what you carried." She looked down at the jacket in his hands. All the laughter, all the ridicule, all the assumptions. They had no idea. Neither did she. "What happens now?" she asked. Halden placed the jacket carefully on the pedestal. The hologram shifted, aligning perfectly with it, past and present overlapping. "Now," he said, "we prepare." "For what?" Halden's eyes hardened. "For the moment the rupture reopens." A low hum filled the room as systems activated. Data streams flickered across the walls. Aria stepped closer to the pedestal. Her reflection merged with the hologram of her mother. Two figures, separated by time, connected by something far greater. "They laughed at me," she said quietly. Halden gave a faint nod. "They laughed at what they didn't understand." Aria reached out and touched the edge of the jacket. The fabric was rough, real, heavy with history. "I don't even know if I can do this," she admitted. Halden looked at her, not as a student, but as something else entirely. "You can," he said. "Because she believed you could." Aria took a slow breath. For the first time since arriving at the Academy, she didn't feel out of place. She felt chosen. Outside the chamber, the galaxy continued as it always had, unaware of the fragile line holding it together. Inside, a forgotten legacy stirred. And somewhere, deep in the fabric of space, something began to wake. The laughter was gone. In its place stood something far more powerful. Silence. And the quiet beginning of a storm. Thank you for listening. Subscribe for more cinematic science fiction stories.